It's interesting to be here. Okay, let me stand here let me feel like one bad guy. First up, let me say thank you to Uche for this opportunity. We've done business together for a little over a year. I'd say I've always looked at Uche's work from a distance, and after a while I started to appreciate the value of gathering people together. I started out thinking about digital business about 8 years ago. I think I lost my job and I was looking for the next opportunity. I've always loved writing, and like I say to my friends, I'm a failed writer because I've never really finished anything I wanted to write. In fact, there's a box I saw in my dad's room in the village this Christmas. He had about 3 manuscripts. One of them, I think I was about 15 when I started it. And I laughed at my foolishness. The content, not that I stopped it. Anyways, shoot forward to 2010, 2011. One of the first platforms we worked with Uche on, Dala.xyz. Dala is still evolving. It's evolving because we are trying to define it, what we want to do with it. My first love is music. Besides being a failed writer, I'm also a failed musician, and a failed actor, and a failed movie producer. No, I didn't fail at that. I successfully made about 2 movies. And when I realized that wasn't working for me, because Nollywood seems interesting right now. When I get a few things out of my plate this year, I had promised myself that I was going to make a movie straight to cinema this year. I hope I can raise the investment to do it, because right now here, if you don't have 20 million, forget it. So that's where Dala is. With Dala, today we say we do lifestyle, entertainment, and some health. Because we realize that there's a growing market in Nigeria, whether you like it or not. Guys are interested in what they look like. It's always been women, but today guys are interested in what they look like. If you look around the room, you see 1 or 2 guys with the current look. The beard gang, the so essentially, when we started out Dala, we tried to define who we were addressing. And it's a good thing Uche is here. For like 3 months, we're always quarreling. Why do we have this number of likes? Why do we have this one? And then we had Spark. Spark is the name of the company, by the way. Spark happened by mistake. I'd come back to Port Harcourt from Lagos. I came to head communications for Port Harcourt World Book Capital. And project was ending. I wasn't going to continue working with my boss. I was starting my company. I ran into an old friend, and we walked into PhD together. He was working in PhD then. You people call it NEPA. And I found out that the power sector lacked engagement with their customers. Communication was a huge challenge. Sensitization, a huge challenge. I won't say we have achieved what we set out to do with PhD, but I'll say that the company is no longer where it was when we joined them 2 years ago. At least they have a Facebook page now. There's a Twitter account. We've successfully worked with PhD to engage with their customers to migrate from analog meters, at least in Port Harcourt. I think as at the last count, we had done 53,000 direct engagements with customers who were migrated from analog to prepaid meters. These people have successfully understood how to manage their electricity, how they load their meters, and how they save costs in an environment that is largely aggressive. For me, that is a feat, because before we got in, places like Orazi tore out 5,000 of their meters. And this too, they run fast. Bah, they tore it out. I know, I'm not speculating. I've attended 3 meetings with them. We're still negotiating to go back in there. Another huge challenge, Obibo, or like they call it Oyigbo, has about 13 communities in there that is owing over 7 billion naira historically in debt. We're still struggling to get there. So when we got into that sector, we evolved from being like you to almost being like them. But we had to find a middle ground. Our middle ground was Spark. We found out that there was no online presence for electricity sensitization in Nigeria. So we set up sparkonline.com.ng. At the point we set up, we still didn't realize ourselves, and some other person who I'm still yet to discover set up Nigerian Electricity Hub. The person obviously had a lot more money than we did and started pushing their like campaigns and all, which was why at the point I and Uche were always arguing. These people's likes, they have higher likes than us. But essentially, to ignore all of that, where we are today is that we've successfully created a relationship with at least half of the Nigeria power sector. We get direct information from them. We are luckily in a space where we realized early that we didn't need to copy and paste. We could engage with heads of communications of these companies to get direct information. And what has that done for us? We found out that by the end of last year, even the guys who were above us in terms of electricity news in Nigeria had started copying our news. And for us, it was a big feat. Why? Because we're not waiting for this day, or Guardian, or channels to put out a story. We started engaging directly. We started driving trends on social media. We started putting out information. Like if you get on our website today, if you get on sparkonline.com.ng, you'd see things like how to report a stealing or a corrupt disco official. You see things like steps to get a prepaid meter in this disco, that disco, how to stay safe during bad weather, how to report your distribution company to NERC. And there's a whole lot of how-tos there. But essentially what that did for us was that we started getting people who could go step by step and get results from the power sector, which we thought was crap. I don't know why I'm talking about blogging. But essentially, okay, I know why I'm talking about it. Like Emeka had said earlier, what's that Google thing? What's it called? AdSense. We battled AdSense, left, right, center. We don't have AdSense, we don't have AdSense. And I got to a point where I had to realize that it is important to know that you innovate or die. So what did we do? We have been for about 4 months now in a space of, 7 months more like, creating value out of what we do. And the first step which we've achieved, and I mean I'm proud and I'm grateful to the people I've worked with. Uncle over there as well, he's smiling. We created SparkPay. It's a bill collection service where we've managed to drag in PhD, Ikeja, Echo, Benin, and Just distribution companies to collect on their behalf. through digital devices. The margins are small, but what I realized is that if I'm making 2% by working with 6 distribution companies around regions that have strong internet and social media presence, it means that for every 100,000 worth of units that I buy, I make 2,000, yes? Now, if I'm able to replicate that 100,000 or turn it over 100 times, I'll make how much? 2 million. If I replicate 2,000 100 times, 200,000. Now, essentially, I also found out that I don't necessarily need too many people to drive this. So Auntie Chinedu joined us to work on that part of the business, and maybe a few more people along the line. And I'm also willing to share that my 200,000 with as many people who will come along with us. Why? Because 1, there's a need to create value. 2, while you're fighting for space on Google AdSense, he said something outside just as we're talking. You're making money from here to pay here, because there's Facebook advertising, there's a keywords advertising, and all sorts, because you want to come in front. Yes? True or false? But I also realized that we can also localize our monetization. And we can only localize our monetization when we start to create local value. So this year I said to myself that I'm going to grow from trying to be a CEO to being a chief marketing officer of my businesses. We want to engage with people who are willing to monetize locally. What we are also seeing in our vision is that within the next 2 years, we should be able to set up an offline vendor point at every 5 transformers, so that we can drive convenience in collections. We also have what we call S4 Report. S4 Report, what it does for us is that it enables you, the customer, report incidents of electricity theft and staff corruption. When we had the first version of S4 Report, we struggled. We finished the second version, we're still struggling. And then I went back to our partners, the Discord, and I said, look, this thing isn't working. Apparently Nigerians don't want to snitch, they don't care. And worse still, we know the story about NEPA being hated worse after police, yes? So who wants to help you? So how do we do this? We reached an understanding and we said, if there's a penalty for electricity theft, why don't you split that penalty with whoever is blowing that whistle? At that time, for customers like you and I, penalty for stealing electricity was 5,000 naira. Customers like Jai's Bank, it was 50,000. Recently, NERC moved the regulation, Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, to 50,000 for you and I and 100,000 for them. And in November, we closed our first 3 biggest, how they call them, Kachabi. We slammed 3 banks in Port Harcourt for stealing electricity. I think before we left, we were just writing the invoice for that. And the MD, the CEO, had signed off 20% of those penalties to go to us and the whistleblowers. I also got confirmation that one of the branch managers got fired. They were owing nearly 4 million naira. The guy looped his transformer, went and connected from the back. What we did was that the guys who discovered it went back there, made a video of the place, and we slammed the video online. And in 24 hours, in fact, it trended because, you know the way they plan all these things. Got on YouTube in 24 hours, over 1,000 views. So of course, their corporate affairs people started calling, what's the problem? And they ended up paying that money. Essentially, I'm telling these stories and experiences because we want to work with people that want to monetize locally. This is just a tip of the iceberg. Our other site, dollar.xyz, is going to expand soon. We're going to build Dollar Digital. We want to be Africa's iTunes. We started working, at least design phase. We also got into agriculture. Uche almost bought goat from me at Christmas, but he dodged. I had this thing called Everything Was Goat at Christmas. And in about 20 days, I sold about 50 goats. The first Igbo headsman. Hey. Now, essentially, I realized that it is not just about creating the content. Creating the content is one step. Monetization is the second step. You can either compete as a content creator or you compete in the space of monetization. I've chosen to compete by creating monetization. So in 2018, we'd like to partner with digital businesses who don't mind giving us space on the infrastructure to place advertising, and we'll split commission on revenue. Some of what we place may not belong to us originally. What SparkPay will place will not belong to us originally. We're selling electricity tokens. What other of our platforms would place may belong to us originally. We're coming to you people soon. We'll have meetings in Enugu by next month. We want to spread our footprint. If you've traveled a lot in recent times, Abuja, you know about Buy Power. These are businesses that essentially understand that people must use electricity. Now, if you also want to partner with us, we'd also take it a step further. We'd also say, we want to share information with you. If you get on our platform, sparkonline.com.ng, you see what we call outage alerts. We're currently able to share for about 4 discos when people don't have power. Who can tell you, if you tell me your neighborhood and I check my computer, I'll tell you whether you have light or not. And we can share that update with you real time. So we want to be able to share information. We want to be able to drive sensitization. There's a lot happening in Nigeria. So if you're willing to work with us, we are open for those partnerships. If I want to talk about power in Nigeria, you may stone me or you may stone the next politician you see. But the truth is, if we do not sensitize people, if we do not engage people and let them know why things happen in the sector, we cannot create value and we cannot build a better economy. So, and one thing, we don't do propaganda. I don't get involved with politicians. I just want to be interested in creating value in my local area. Chinedu is here, by the way. Please, if you're interested, it would be nice if you can meet on the side. Put down your details so we can get in touch with you, so we can start to establish that relationship. In 2018, we want to turn around that 200,000 naira. That 100,000 naira, we want to turn it around at least 1 million times. So we want to know people who are in it with us. And if we turn it around 1 million times, we're willing to share 50% of that value of the commission with our partners. That's the contract we want to sign with our people. Thank you.